The worst part about hitting classroom management rock bottom is that you don't know you've hit rock bottom. All you know is that when your alarm clock rings in the morning, it feels like your skin is getting ripped off. It's like you're mad that you didn't just die in your sleep and now you have to go into school and face these students. I'm kind of exaggerating, but if this is where you're at right now, you know I'm not exaggerating by that much. The one student who you thought was going to be your biggest problem at the beginning of the year is now just one of a big group of students who have followed this student's lead or come up with their own creative ways of making things unbearable in your classroom. The only way you can get your class's attention is to yell louder than they're yelling, which is almost impossible. And even if you do get your voice loud enough to get the class's attention, there's a good chance they're going to ignore you anyway, or yell back, or just turn this whole thing into an argument about who was doing what first in the first place. Things are constantly getting thrown across the room. The lights get turned on and off. You find things missing from your desk. You hear the kids insulting each other. The noise level never goes down. When the students leave for the day, you look around the room and it's such a disaster that even though you're completely exhausted and you have so many other things to do, you find yourself cleaning up just enough so that the room will be presentable enough for the custodian to walk in. And one day while doing that, you find out someone has peed in the trash can. The worst part about all this, if you can pick a worst part, is that some of your students are genuinely nice kids and they are doing their best and they deserve for your class to be better than this, and you know that, and yet things are not better. These students may be getting bullied on your watch, and at the very least, they are getting cheated out of the education that you hoped to give students when you became a teacher. You did not come for this. The scenario that I just described is kind of a composite, but it is all based on real stories that have come up in my 20 years of working with teachers. My name is Roxana Eldon. I run the Maintain and Stay Sane program for teachers. And if this situation sounded familiar to you, hearing about the importance of classroom management probably makes you lose your appetite. You already know that you need most of the class on your side for a traditional classroom management system to work. And you already have a sense of what you should have done better or earlier or whatever. You just need something to help you fix this now. A class that is completely out of control is most teachers' worst nightmare, but it does offer you a certain freedom. You have nowhere to go but up, so there is some room to be creative. There are 4 general things that are going to help with this, and you just want to be pushing in that direction, even if progress stalls out a little bit some days. You need to get your students' attention. You need to make them see themselves as a team. You need to show them that you care about them in spite of everything that's happening. And you need to give them some reason to change their behavior. Those 4 things will look very different in each class, but you just want to keep those things in mind as dots on the horizon that you're just constantly steering toward. Now let's talk about some specific things that you want to keep in mind before planning a classroom complete hostile takeover or reset. First, timing is important. The best time for a major change is when you haven't seen your students in a few days. If you can't wait until after a break, at least start on a Monday. That usually works better than you rolling in on a random Thursday and just going like, there's a new sheriff in town. On a related note, even though I'm saying get your students' attention, I'm not saying to go for shock value and do something so out of character that it makes students think you went crazy. That is usually not a good starting point, not to mention we live in an era where anything dramatic can easily be recorded on a cell phone, and that can be your main reputation as a teacher. So get the students' attention, but that does not mean shock them into being quiet, because on top of everything else, that may not even last. So I'm going to advise you against doing anything that requires you to be far from the teacher that you intend to be. Another thing to keep in mind is that as much as you want the students to finally be quiet, that is just the first step. You need some type of plan to put in place once you have their attention. Students will try to shake off your plan. They're not going to take you seriously right away. Any new system you try will be tested repeatedly before your students believe you are serious. So be prepared to hold on tight as students try to shake off your new routine. And this brings us to the next point, which is that if you don't give up, time is often on your side. You may be in a classroom that has run off teachers in the past or has had a string of long-term subs, and you may be surprised at how much their behavior improves over time if you just continue to show up every day and do your best to try to teach. And the final tip is just to believe that your students want to be in a well-run classroom and that it is possible for you to give them one. Teachers have bounced back from out of control classrooms. It is possible. I'm not saying it will happen for you. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is possible. So that is our starting point. In fact, the reason that I'm recording this now is because it's the middle of October, and this is widely known as what's called the disillusionment phase for new teachers. It's when teachers are exhausted. They're still paying off the mistakes they've made at the beginning of the year. The end of the year is nowhere in sight, and it can really feel like things are never going to get better. The disillusionment phase is the reason that I created the Disillusionment Power Pack, which is a free series of emails meant to get you through the absolute worst part of your first year of teaching. You can sign up for those using the link that you'll find in the description below this video. It does get better, but until then, these emails should help. Thanks for watching, and I would say have a great day, but you're probably not going to have a great day if we're being honest. So I will say the thing that my sister and her roommates used to say to each other during their first year of teaching, which is every morning they would just say, have a day. And they did. They had days. And I also wish you a day.